There are moments in life when time seems to slow down, when everything else fades into the background, and all that's left is a heartbeat, a breath, and a choice. This is the story of such a moment. In a quiet hospital ward, under dim fluorescent lights and the steady hum of medical machines, a nurse moved quickly. Her footsteps echoed down the sterile hallway as she approached a young man in uniform, a Marine, fresh-faced, resolute, standing at attention like he'd been taught. She reached for his hand and said with urgency, "Come quickly. Your father is dying." She didn't wait for confirmation, no time for questions, just the raw, aching knowledge that a man was slipping away and wanted to hold his son's hand one last time. The Marine followed her down the hallway without a word. They entered the dimly lit room. A frail, elderly man lay in the bed, his chest rising and falling in shallow, labored breaths. Tubes connected him to life, but not for much longer. The nurse whispered softly again, "He's been calling for his son." The old man stirred. His eyelids fluttered open for a second, revealing eyes clouded with sedation, confusion, and age. He reached out barely with a trembling hand. The young Marine stepped forward, unsure yet steady, and then without hesitation he took the old man's hand in his own. Strong, warm, comforting, and in that moment something changed. The Marine sat down beside the man. The nurse quietly pulled up a chair. Time passed, but he didn't move. Hours slipped by. Occasionally, the nurse would return and gently urge him to take a break, stretch, eat, rest. But each time, the Marine shook his head. "I'm all right," he whispered. His grip on the old man's hand never loosened. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It was filled with presence, with compassion, with something that didn't need words. The night grew deeper. The lights dimmed further. Somewhere outside the world kept turning, but inside that room there was only the quiet breath of a man nearing the end, and the gentle strength of another who chose to stay. At some point in the night, the Marine leaned forward. He whispered something into the old man's ear, words the nurse couldn't hear from the doorway. A few minutes later, the old man exhaled one last time and did not inhale again. The monitor went silent. His hand, once clutched tightly around the Marine's, fell still. The young man gently placed it on the bed. Then, with solemn respect, he stood and walked toward the nurse. His voice was calm. "He's gone." She nodded. Tears brimmed in her eyes. "I'm so sorry for your loss." But before she could say more, he stopped her. "No, you don't understand," he said. She blinked, confused. "But he was your father, wasn't he?" The Marine shook his head slowly. "No, ma'am. I've never met that man before tonight." The nurse stared at him, stunned. "But why didn't you say anything? Why did you sit with him all night?" The Marine looked down the hallway for a long moment, then back at her, and what he said next was something she would never forget. "I could see he was dying, and he thought I was his son. I could feel it in the way he held my hand. He was scared, alone, waiting for someone who never came. I knew he needed someone to be there. So I stayed. That's all." In that hospital room, on an ordinary night, something extraordinary happened. A stranger didn't correct the mistake. He didn't look the other way. He didn't walk out. He stepped in. He sat down. He showed up, not because he had to, but because someone needed him. And in doing so, he gave a dying man peace. You see, we don't always get to choose the moments that define us. Sometimes they find us, unexpectedly, in a hospital hallway, in a friend's phone call, in a stranger's eyes. And in that moment, we have a choice to look away, or to lean in, to walk past, or to hold someone's hand.